Eat it. Oxygen. Why we Hey everyone, welcome to the Grit Files. I'm your host, Loralyn Mears. And on the show today, we have got somebody who, well, he's got grit. And he's also got a really cool new platform called Kiddom, which is focused on training and upskilling and teaching all of our young children who are looking for new ways to learn and experience that digital learning experience, but done in a way that's not like all of those massive online learning companies where video one, here we go, video two, here we go, where it's a one size, sort of fits all thing. That's not what Ahsan Rizvi does. And he's got a lot of stories here to share with us. Welcome to the show.
Hi, nice to meet you, Loralyn.
Well, since you are accustomed and playing in that space of teaching and educating children, this first question should be an easy one. If we're all a bunch of 5-year-olds here listening on this podcast, we say, what does Kiddom really do? Explain it to us.
Well, I don't know if I can do it for a 5-year-old as well. I don't interact with that many 5-year-olds nowadays, unfortunately, but I'll try to do my best. So Kiddom is the first all-in-one education platform for a high-quality digital curriculum. It's flexible, customizable, it integrates with all these really great curriculum resources and enables them to be managed centrally, to be instructed upon, to be assessed upon. And then it has all these interesting tools around communication to provide one solution that saves schools time and money.
Okay, that's great. And I think even a 5-year-old could understand it because you explained it so succinctly and so clearly. Okay, now, because this is the Grit Files and every entrepreneur, right, has that gritty backstory. Right. Give us the grittiest thing behind the scenes here. What's going on? What's your story, Ahsan? What do you want to share to inspire the other entrepreneurs who are listening to our show?
Yeah, I think a lot of the in our society, startups are in vogue, and there's all this amazingness around people having a lot of capital to deploy, and that capital has been raised by a lot of companies. But what really makes companies is the buckets of sweat and early grit. And I think a lot of that, the stories don't really get told. And, I'm not unique in that sense. Every entrepreneur you probably talk to has one of those stories, if not multiple, right? My story is I am an immigrant. I was born and raised in Pakistan, came to the US, about in 2003, 2004, went to college here. As every sort of South Asian immigrant's family will tell you, they want them to be either an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer, right? But I ended up picking engineering, but I was also very intrigued by the whole, the humanities and the social sciences. So studied a bunch of philosophy and political science as well. Throughout my time in college, I was really interested in doing something that impacted people's lives in a positive manner. And, it was hard to see how I could do that in a corporate job, whether that be working for, a tech company or a bank or consultancy. So I really wanted that impact and that feeling of like, okay, whatever I do has an impact on people's lives in a very definitive manner. So I went and, thought that the best place to do that would be DC because, people who are there work on social stuff, right? And so I try to, my first internships, one of the first internships out of college was at this the SBA, the Small and Medium Business Association and administration in the US. And the idea was like, okay, how are we going to make sure that all the businesses that got really leveled because of Katrina are going to have capital to stand up again? How do we bring back economic empowerment and enablement to an entire area, which was basically without shops, without schools, without communities, right? And so working on that was really eye-opening for me because you can have a really positive impact through like good, coherent governmental action. After that, I worked in international development, working on literacy initiatives across the board, funding literacy initiatives. I was at a place called the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. Again, sort of theme was, I want to do something that helps people improve their lives. And this was, I couldn't think of any better way than doing through literacy initiatives. And fast forward to now, I work on Kiddom, and I've been blessed and privileged in a privileged position to be able to lead Kiddom. And Kiddom is building technology so that our future generations will have a better, a more successful educational experience, right? We want to unlock potential for teachers and learners. So in that vein, when you come up and say that to someone, they probably won't believe it, right, at the first time. And so you have to start with how do you make people believe in the thing that you want to do, so that they either want to use it, or they want to help you get to other people who can use it, or they want to give you capital or an investment to build it, right? The way to think about it is like, the entire startup experience is to grab as many people who will believe in you as possible until you become a company of some magnitude. And that's not easy. Like, I remember the early days of Kiddom was very painful. I did not have a paycheck, right? So it's really hard to survive without a paycheck. As you know, I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. My
cheap place to live.
Very cheap place. Yeah. And it's only gotten cheaper over the years, really. So the entire thing was how, like my girlfriend at the time and my wife now was the one working, but she was early in her career. So we had to find a really, really cheap apartment, which was very, very, very hard to do in San Francisco. And then I, as any entrepreneur, I would work, a lot of hours, because that's the only way to get anything done. Because I'm the only one doing it, and a few people who I was fortunate enough to work with at that time. And so I would work really long hours. And her entry job was in Europe, or with the company that was based out of Europe. So she had to wake up at like 4 or 5 a.m. to start work, and I wouldn't go to bed till 4 or 5 a.m. So I had to work from my bathroom, in my tiny bathroom, my tiny studio apartment in San Francisco, and live like that for about close to 6 or 7 months before we were able to convince a bunch of people to give us some investment, so I could move out of that into a shared desk space. So I there's lots of other stories there, but that to me is like one of the most formative experiences, because that really tests your mettle.
It absolutely does. I mean, we hear about all of these companies starting up in a garage, right? We all know some of the big stories there, but I have to say, there's not many that I've heard have started up in a bathroom. So, hey, hang on to that one, Ahsan. That's a nice differentiator.
Yeah, that's whatever I can do to provide some novelty to the experience.
Well, and it's also where, I appreciate your candor. I mean, we're all seeing what's going on now in this sort of investment winter that's happening, and that elastic is snapping back. People that threw $1 million at PowerPoints, like, hey, Web3 sounds fabulous, right? Here's $1 million. And then the founders are going, no, I don't feel like it. I think it's really hard to be a founder, and I'm out. This is why we're seeing some of the collapse of the investment industry. But with you, and you talk about that, so many founders have the misconception that it's just like, boom, show a PowerPoint deck, boom, here's $1 million, boom, I'm getting, $150,000 a year, boom, and you just go. But that's not the case.
No, that's not. Like, I don't know. I think my co-founder and I didn't get a 6-figure salary much later than most of our peers would have in life, because we were pouring all of our money into trying to make him successful, right? I think a lot of that, like, especially if you're coming from outside of the system, right? Like, if you're not, there's people who for some reason or the other have worked at the startup, or their first job out of college was a startup, and that startup was successful, and they have much more understanding and connections. I was coming out cold from into the Bay Area, and I didn't know anyone. So why would anyone? And the way you think about the venture industry and is that it's very much like a bespoke. It's like a village to a degree, right? Like, people who know people who know people. That's how it works. At least pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, like, it's everyone's on a Zoom call and getting to know each other is a bit different. But at that time, the only way you could get a connection to investor was like somebody had to vouch for you. And so to get to that point as an outsider, it's much harder. Right? There's a lot more barriers to get to there. And thinking that a PowerPoint will get you there is not the thing. So for us, on the Kiddom side in the early days, like we didn't even think about investment really, because we were intrigued by this problem, right? The problem we saw, my co-founder and I, was who's our chief academic officer, the problem we saw was that teachers need better tools to work with students, right? They need better ways to manage their lessons. How do they deliver it? How do they instruct? Better ways to manage data and understand how students are doing over time. And we were trying to solve these problems, and we were building product and giving it to our users to try to see how well they reacted to the things we were building. And that's all, of course, like that's a painful process as well. So for us, like the only way we could build a solution to the problem that's scalable was to raise investment. And that's where we went outward. Like we wanted to get money so that we can actually continue building the product and continue serving our customers. We didn't, I had to learn how to make a deck, or even what a deck was in 2015. I didn't know what an investment deck looked like.
And you see some of them now. Like I judge a lot of high school and even college level pitch contests. And you look at some of the ideas in these pitch decks and you're thinking, wow, you blow away the average graphics designer. Now, of course, the access to tools like Canva and these kinds of things have enabled that.
Yeah.
But still, I've got to applaud how far people have gone with this. And with respect to yourself and talking about doing that initial raise, to what extent do you think that having your advanced degrees in public policy helps you understand how to connect with people? And to what degree, on the flip side, do you think, like you talked about being an outsider to the circle and being a person of color, restricted you from trying to be able to break in there? So I think you had some good access through your public policy education, but I think you may have potentially been held back just given your status. Can you comment on that and share that with entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it's I think so. One of the things that the policy side of things got me to see the macro problems in the world, right? In a much more cohesive manner. Like we as a country struggle to figure out how to educate our children better and our students better, while having some idea of how to keep costs down, right? Because there's so many more things to do, so many more things to teach. School districts have a bundle of resources that do a lot of things. So that, to me, understanding how the system works, right, and how to navigate within it is helpful through policy, right? On the side of like, I think raising money and doing things, I think it's hard to comment like what opportunities I could have gotten or not could have gotten because the way I look. In general, I think it's Silicon Valley is full of South Asian people, right? To a degree, like I don't know, the Silicon Valley of 1990s probably was very different, but I think the sort of the people who came before me and the people who had success before me from South Asia and from Pakistan and India, like they sort of set up the stage for other entrepreneurs to do it, right? Now, it still is not the same as if you have a much more traditional path towards starting a company, which is you work at Google or you work at a big tech company and then you work at a very successful company, startup, and get there just in time. And that company, people are much more people will believe your story more, right? But I think what sort of makes it harder is that when people don't know you and you're telling a story that's very new to them, it becomes harder and harder to convince them to invest in your idea or in the product that you're building. I think what compounds that is that over time, like edtech is not something that Silicon Valley has traditionally invested in a lot until recently, right? Like that changed post 2015, 2016, 2017. One of our biggest venture backers is Owl Ventures, and their fund completely driven on edtech investments, and really they've done really well. But it's hard to tell that story when that's, when, for example, like at that time it was, I don't know exactly what it was, but it's probably some social app that was the in vogue story that people want to listen to. So it's hard to convince people that, edtech is something you should invest in, coupled with the fact that you're a nobody, and coupled with the fact that you have no, tech success.
A lot of unknowns, right? And then so
exactly.
I think the whole thing, and where I identify with this, like on a couple of sides, when you are at that bleeding edge, right? When you're almost ahead of the market, everybody's trying to catch up, it's very hard. You have to go into that position of evangelism, and the only way you get is evangelism through education and through more knock knock, right? It just it doesn't take 10, it takes 10,000. And that's part of the difference. And then you look at even the statistics, on the investments from the venture capital and investment pool, almost 400 billion last year. Woohoo! 1.7% to women, 0.6% to blacks. Like, that's just wrong. Just absolutely wrong. And so where, like I said, where the nature of that question came through, and really to inspire people to keep trying, that despite all of the things against you, like you said, unknown product, unknown person, outside of the network, all of these things, that you found a way to get in front of the right people who believed in you and believed in the ideas that you generated. And you just have to keep looking and keep trying.
Yeah, and I think you have to knock on a lot of doors, right? That's just the nature of the part. That's just what you have to do. I do think, like, when you have compounding unknowns, that you have to, it also compounds the amount of doors you have to knock on over time, right? And the fact that you're a person of color, I think, or a woman, that will always compound, right? The statistics show it, that you have more, it's worse off for you. There's a lot of organizations and companies that are trying to correct that, but that's, from the base where it is right now, right? That's it's pretty pathetic as an industry. We haven't done that great of a job.
Yeah, bingo. So, talking about things that weigh us down, share with our audience what your kryptonite is. What takes you out at the knees?
Oof, what my kryptonite is. In terms of, tell me more. Like, in terms of, like, what I don't like to do, or what I.
No, things that just, those are the days where you're just like, I'm not going to make it to the end of the day because this kind of thing is happening or happened to me. Just what really takes you out at the knees. That's what kryptonite, right? It took out Superman. Yeah. Anytime you got near it, it's like, I have no powers, right?
Unfortunately, or fortunately, you generally don't have the option to bend at your knees when people are coming at you all day with problems and issues that are there. I think what really troubles me deeply is when our customers are having issues, right? Like, and when we promise them and to deliver them something and experience a product, and that we can't deliver it, and that and sometimes we have issues, and the site goes down. I'll tell you a story of when back to school happened in August 2020, and one of our biggest customers said that school is going to be on Kiddom. And when they said that, they didn't really tell us before saying that. And all these students, were supposed to go and log into Kiddom to take a class. And generally, that's we built a lot of features to enable that off that, but essentially, like, we didn't know that, and a lot of students were just telling us that they couldn't access the materials, they couldn't go to school because Kiddom was not up. And that's not a
that's kryptonite.
That's hard, right? Like, because it's 6 a.m. in the morning, you get a call from the school superintendent saying that, hey, school's on Kiddom, and well, school's not happening because Kiddom, it's hard for students to log into Kiddom right now. Well, because the entire world was trying to log into Kiddom at the same time during that time. And that was really hard, right? We had to keep servers up, things are flaming on the side, like, it's just like the canonical meme, right? It's like everything's burning around you and you're sitting and this is fine. That's what we had to do. But I'm so happy with, but in the next couple of hours, like, we were able to solve some of, those problems, get kids back into school. And, it it started happening gradually that everyone could go to school. But those are the kind of things that you had faced with, like unexpected surges in demand that just in the moment you have so many fires burning at the same time, from like your service washing out to your customers screaming at you to students not being able to school. It's like an entire amalgamation of the worst things that can happen to you in a 5 hour, 6 hour period.
Those are the days, right, that you want to end early, but you can't.
But you can't. Yeah, you made a promise to your customers. You made a promise to the students. You made a promise to your to the parents of the students that they will be in school. So you have to keep those promises.
Hearing you talk about the fires putting out, I often share that with other people that are questioning my sanity, taking an entrepreneurial journey at the stage that I'm at. I said, like, everything's on fire every day, all the time. And it's a matter of ruthless prioritization to figure out which one you want to try to maybe not even put out, but just give you a little bit of space and give it a little less oxygen. So it's not raging inferno, that it's just burning. And then anything else that's burning, just kind of ignore it. And if anything's like sparking and smoking, you don't even think about that.
Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 3, never again. This is the thing that I think I learned over time as I talk to more entrepreneurs is, you want to know whether this journey you're on is it unique? Are you the only one with the problems, or the issues, or the investment problems, or these problems? And I guarantee you, like, everyone has these. Like, the Tesla was not able to build any Model 3 cars not in the very distant past. Like, they couldn't manufacture, they didn't have the money, and that's a big company, right? Like, everyone has problems. Every startup from when you enter it will, and especially if you're coming from a big company, will look like a shit show, because by design, right? Like, you don't build a super very mechanically driven like organization overnight, right? And because we're in the business of doing something novel and unique and innovative, that means that things are not going to be that smooth. And so over time you get to be okay living with this amount of uncertainty, and this amount of constant anxiety, I would call it. Like, the level of anxiety an entrepreneur has is just a tad bit much higher than if you're not an entrepreneur.
You think it's only a tad bit higher?
I don't want to assume how much anxiety people have. That's sort of. But you just have to live with it, because that's the choice you made. You made the choice to build a company. You made the choice to hire people. You made the choice to build products for your customers, and hopefully build a company that can stand the test of time. That's the choice you made.
That's right. And it's being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart, right? There's, like you said, everything's on fire, and you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. There is no playbook for what you're doing. You're disrupting markets. So it doesn't say like, okay, to disrupt market, do this next. You figure it out.
No. And to a degree, like, there's going to be lots of hard choices. I think from my angle, like, one of the things that I've tried to maintain as much as possible is like make decisions quickly, right? Like, most people, like, you're going to have a lot of problems, and in order to go through a lot of problems very quickly is that you have to make decisions very quickly about whether you want to solve the problem or not, or whether how you want to solve the problem or not. And if you can make decisions quickly, that will improve the rate at which you or your company or your cohort of people around you function. And if you make those decisions quick enough, then people will be able to do the things that they need to do or you enable them as fast as possible. The flip side of that is that you don't want to make decisions which are irreversible very quickly, right? Because you don't want to say that we're going to build this product, and then you take 6 months, build a product, and you rate and think about the customers, et cetera, and then you lost a lot of money. So what I would say is that if there's constant decisions you have to make, whether you're going to worry about something, not worry about something, build something, not build something, in general, take them quickly unless they're irreversible.
I like it. Now, what if I gave you an undo button and you get to hit it once, Ahsan? What would you undo in your life, personally or professionally? What would you undo?
What would I undo? That's a hard one. Yeah, I think one of the things that that is hard to be. The reason it's hard is because all of your experiences get you to where you are. So part of who you are and how you function as a company or as a business or entrepreneur is, your collective experiences made you. And in hindsight, it's very easy to say like, okay, I'll then do this, but probably had a big part in and making you who you are. So with that caveat, I would say that I think from the business side, I think we should have, for the longest time we had a free product out there. We were so focused on having a free product that sometimes it made it hard to do the transition towards a paid product over time and focus on it. And I don't know if I would undo having a free product for teachers, because we still have one and still like have that ethos that teachers need better tools and they should be able to access some parts of Kiddom like free, so that there's a teacher somewhere that needs help, we should be able to help them. On the flip side, like I think building out the muscle to serve districts and schools, it took longer than we realized, and that's the part I think I would probably have done faster in retrospect.
Okay. Last question. Now this one's fun, and this is our signature question. If we got a peek into your closet and there was a pair of footwear there that personified who you are, represented your personality, your traits, your characters, describe that footwear to us and why you identify with it.
Oof. Okay. I think my answer. So I do like footwear, and I do like a lot of it. I think one of the things that I do like a lot of different styles. So that's the fun part about buying footwear. You can buy lots of different things. And right now, a company called Fear of God. That's I really like, and I think the designer is really great. And I've seen the designer grow from sort of been following him since it was a t-shirt company. Now it's a full brand, and I have a pair of what I call it, like slides I bought from them that I wear all the time, and I think that personifies where I am right now, because I can quickly get into them, go to a place, do my thing, because I really don't have time to like sift through my closet and find the perfect pair of shoes. So unfortunately, I'm constantly wearing one thing right now.
There you go. So LS Steve Jobs, right? Oh, make it easy. Black turtleneck jeans, done. Right, 50 of each, all finished.
It's
right
in front of me. I slide my foot in there, and I'm out and getting coffee.
There you go. So with that, thank you so much, Ahsan Rizvi, founder of Kiddom, making it easier for teachers and students everywhere to have a better digital experience and really bringing education into this century. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Thanks, Jessica. And thank you, Loralyn.
Don't forget to follow Grit Daily News as well as me, your host, Loralyn Mears, everywhere on social media. And how about throwing 4 or 5 stars our way if you're listening to Apple or Spotify? Subscribe to our show. And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?